Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode. I'm your host, Brennan Cobb, and today I've got Eugene Gershman on the show. He is a seasoned business executive and developer with nearly 20 years of experience in real estate and construction. He's done everything from finance to technology. I know he prides himself on doing ongoing research, innovation, and growth. He's kind of an analyst junkie, and he's got a really interesting service. And it's kind of funny, like we've started doing some similar stuff because there's such a huge need for his type of service. Stay tuned on what that is. But first, Eugene, welcome to the show. It's good to see you.
Thanks, Brennan. I'm excited. Pleasure being here.
Yeah, absolutely. So you help landowners take their land and get the highest and best use out of it and maximize profit. And you told me something when I was kind of getting to know you a little bit before here. Is like, I tell people don't sell your land. And I was like, what do you mean exactly? So maybe you can tell people, like, so what do you mean when you tell landowners don't sell your land?
Right, right. Yeah, I don't mean to steal some business away from you, but when I talk to owners who call me, who hear me on social media and on podcasts, they call me and ask, "So, what exactly do you mean?" So I have this piece of land. Maybe I inherited it. Maybe I've owned it for many years. What do you mean I don't need to sell it? And what I tell them is, look, you're sitting on a ton of potential. And the first question I ask them, I'm like, let's just think it through. Let's say you sell it, you get cashed out. What do you do with the money? And literally 80% of them tell me, well, I don't know, probably reinvest it, maybe buy some more real estate. And I'm like, so why do you need to sell this piece of real estate to buy another piece of real estate? Let's go through the process. I'll show you how to develop it, and we'll figure out what's doable. And a lot of these lots are small infill single family. In Western Washington, where I'm at, they recently passed a law that allows people to build two, three, four, I think up to 6 units on their single family parcel. So there's been a huge opportunity there. There's a lot of homes that were built in like 30s, 50s that are in really bad shape and really not worth that the building is not worth anything, but the land is. So I
Mhm.
say, let's go through the process. Let's build a fourplex on the site where one old house used to be. And then I get owners who own hundreds of acres around the country, and we're looking at building subdivisions there, and in some cases, mixed use developments, and going through all that process. And what I tell them is, I'm like, look, if you have a little bit of, not a little bit, if you have equity in your land, we could borrow against your property. We could go through early entitlement stages, and you already created value.
Mhm.
So we could, even if you don't want to go through construction, we could sell it once it's entitled, or I can help you find the right contractor locally to put in the infrastructure and put up the lots, and then you could sell it to infill builders when you have completed lots. Or we could go through and actually finish a subdivision. One of my clients said, I don't want to sell. I don't ever want to sell. I want to continue owning it. They have a lot of acreage. And so we said, okay, let's develop a built to rent community. Because I'm a full service, full scope developer, and we've done projects from nothing to completed buildings, I am comfortable with all aspects of the process. And so that's what I educate people on, and that's what my primary uh, business is about.
Yeah, it's fascinating. So essentially what you're doing is you're helping the landowner maximize the value potential. It's like instead of selling your land and going and buying another piece of real estate, just take it through that value add strategy. So there's three if you're listening. The first value add strategy is entitlement. So it sounds like what Eugene does is he helps them get it entitled, which is takes it from raw farmland or whatever to new housing community, or it's approved for a multifamily complex, whatever it is. It's just paper at this point, but it's worth a lot more money because it's no longer just farmland. It's like a community. So there's a ton of equity that's created. And then the second phase is development. And this is where you're turning the raw land into finished, ready to build lots or ready to build for multifamily or commercial, right? You're just grading it out. You're putting the utilities, the sewer and the water, the roads in and selling it. That creates even more value. And then the third is when you actually go vertical on the actual homes or multifamily, whatever have you. And that's where you create the most equity. And that's what I love about this business because we're in a similar business. That's what we do. Is you've got multiple exit strategies for the piece of land that you're working on. So how do you go about like a homeowner that doesn't do development? That's got to be very intimidating. I would be very intimidated. And like you're the guy that is essentially going to manage it and get it done for them. So like can you describe like what does that look like? I'm a landowner. I got a piece of land. I'm like, "Oh, I didn't know that I could do this with Eugene." What does that look like exactly? How do you work with the landowners?
Right. I love this question. And the reason I got into this business is I grew up in a construction family. I started out working for my dad's construction firm. We were building, as a general contractor, we were building large facilities from big housing facilities to industrial, like a chemical plant that I once was a part of. That was a lot of fun. Then we got into development. We were developing our own projects. And I went from knowing absolutely nothing about development to working on large projects like towers and residential towers and mixed use apartment buildings. I, a few years ago, we started partnering with owners because our phone would ring all the time from people who own the land and who say, "Hey, I really want to build something here. I don't have enough experience. Can you help me out?" And so we would join them and help them put the whole deal together. And then eventually we're like, wait a second, that's a niche. That there's a market in that. There's so many people that could benefit from this as a service. And so that's how this iteration of our company development happened, is we found a niche. And so what I tell owners is that, look, if you have a piece of land, the first thing that I would advise doing is do a feasibility study. You don't have to hire me to do a feasibility study. You could do it on your own. And in fact, we published a guide on our website. Anybody can go on there and download our feasibility study checklist to just follow. There's like 7 detailed steps
Mm-hmm.
that they could follow to do their own feasibility. With the tools that are available to them, from AI to little code analysis tools, it's not very complicated. Now, I say that with a caveat. You really need to know what questions to ask. And that's what years of experience helps me do. But in theory, we start with asking the right questions. We figure out what is that highest and best use. Is it best for a subdivision? Is it a build to rent? Is it a townhome? Is it apartment building? Or
Mm-hmm.
maybe it's something else entirely. Maybe it's a hospitality. Maybe it's a resort. I don't have a lot of experience with hospitality. I say it up front. I've gone through a few early stages of hotel and resort development, so I like to say I know enough to be dangerous, but definitely residential is my thing. So once we know what the process looks like, once we have gone through the feasibility study, and the end result of the feasibility study is a roadmap.
Yeah.
It's what can be done, how much it's going to cost, what the timeline is, what the permitting path is, and most importantly, how much is it going to cost and how we're going to finance it. Well, and then of course, how we're going to sell it and make money on it. But
So you grad so that you've got that feasibility study and they're going, "Oh my gosh, I can do this amazing thing." Like kind of like dollar value. There's dollar signs are probably popping up in their eyeballs. And then you go, and here's how I can help you do it.
that's exactly it. That's exactly it. We typically work as a development consultant in the beginning. I don't like the word consultant because to me, consultant is somebody who charges by the hour and has zero responsibility to deliver a good quality product. They say that they do. They obviously all want repeat business, but if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. They still get paid. The way we structured our business is I wanted to make sure that every owner that I work with knows that I'm motivated. And so the way I work is my fee is nominal, literally to cover my people's payroll and overhead. There's
Mm.
no profit in this work for us. the way we profit is we take a small equity share in projects so that owner knows that if we don't succeed in the end,
Yeah.
we don't get anything. I mean, yes, our operations maybe get covered, but honestly, any one of my employees,
And they're
including
fine giving you
myself,
the equity because you're creating it. I mean,
well,
on
exactly,
top of
exactly. Well,
everything.
and
Yeah.
the way I tell them is, I'm like, look, if I went and got a job with a big real estate investment trust, I'd probably get paid more uh, with a guaranteed paycheck. But that's not what I want. I want to be known as the only company in the country that specifically works with retail owners that helps them develop their land. There's literally not, there's a ton of owners reps out there. There's a ton of fee-based developers out there. There's nobody that does exactly what we do who can come in and advise the owner about how to actually capitalize and double down on the land they already own.
Wow. Can you tell us like a story of a time where you did this, equity deal with an owner or something that worked out really well? I'm just kind of curious.
Yeah, I mean that's our business model. It started a few years ago, and we got approached by a group who is two partners. They had a piece of property here in the Seattle area where it was an office building actually with a large parking lot. And so they went through the process before we got involved. They went through the process of subdividing the parking lot from the building. And it was a lot of excess parking that the office building didn't need. Then they sold the office building, but they retained the vacant parking lot. And so they knew about the development process. They weren't really they weren't very experienced in residential development. They were mostly commercial guys. And so we started working together where we took that project from nothing, from raw land through entitlements. We put together the team. We got the architects. We got all the engineers together. We got all the, surveys and geotechs and everything done. And then once we got to a point where uh, the next step would have been raising capital, and they actually got an amazing offer from a neighbor who wanted to buy that parking lot. So they ended up selling it, and we all won. But the way we structured the deal is with every monthly payment that we took as a development overhead compensation, as well as payments to all of the consultants every month we would earn a tiny incremental equity share of that project. So 2 years later, when they decided to sell it, and we had a minority, so it didn't matter what our opinion was, even if we objected to our equity share was small. But in 2 years that we were working on it, we were earning a slight increase of that equity. So when the time came to liquidate it, they sold the land, they made the premium, we got our profit. Of course, I would have loved to build it, but at that point, the owner made a decision that that was the best decision for them. So we went along with them. So that's one example. But yeah, these structures they're always a little bit different. Every owner wants to structure it slightly different, but the
Yeah.
same idea still applies.
Interesting. So what's the like on that particular deal that you did? What do you think it was you did that, like attracted the owner? So they got in touch with you. What do you think sold them on going with you guys? I'm just kind of curious on how to pitch these services because it's a really genius. I mean, there's a huge need out there for it. Like if landowners knew that they could, tap into some of the equity in their property, just to fund the entitlements and pay you guys to get it there. I mean, they could unlock tons of value. It's just something that's not done. And the
Yeah.
funny thing is we've started doing this too. It's we don't charge an equity split, but no, now I'm kind of thinking like, yeah, why not? Like we just charge straight fees to entitle the property for like per unit. So what sold them on going with you guys?
You know, you want to know what the secret sauce is. Everybody wants to know what the secret sauce is. And I'm happy to reveal it. You would never guess what it is. It's relationships.
Yeah.
I mean, it's as plain as it is. You have to develop relationships. When you're talking to the owner, a lot of people have no idea how much it costs to develop things. They have no idea how much typical developers allocate towards development overhead, or how much owners representatives charge for their services. And so a lot of times when a new client comes to me and I say, yeah, it's going to be $50,000 to go through initial feasibility, their jaw drops. They're like, holy shit, why is it so much? I mean, they could buy a car for that much, right? And I'm like, well, that's what it costs. So if I was trying to sell that expensive of a service, and I mean, when you go through development, it could easily be hundreds of thousands of dollars in development fees. Large projects could easily be a couple $1 million in development fees because it involves so many people and takes so much effort. So it's hard to sell something like that without developing relationships. So it takes time. The development cycle, sales cycle is really long. You have to make sure that people know you, like you, and trust you. I mean, it's just like when you're approaching investors who have never heard of you before and asking them to put a couple $1 million in your project. Unless you develop that relationship, nothing's going to happen. And, what sold these guys? I mean, we knew what we were talking about. We had a few projects of our own that we were working on. We had a few mutual connections that, could validate and, I don't want to say vouch necessarily for us, but, then again, Seattle is a fairly small market.
Yeah.
A lot of the folks in real estate industry know each other, but it's just like that with everything else. I can't imagine doing cold sales of a service like this. I have to develop relationships, and that's what I'm training my team is to. You can't cold call your way through this. It's
Yeah, well, I
ex-
mean,
it-
the problem I've kind of faced is like, at what point do you stop delivering value and go, okay, it's time to ink this? You know what I mean? Because it's like you always have to give something for free, and they got to see the
yeah,
value in order to win them over and get them interested. It's like this in,
yep,
in just about every business.
of
I
course.
mean, at what point do you say, hey, like I'm done giving you all the free stuff that you didn't have to pay for. If you want to move forward, this is my fee, and this is what it looks like.
Right. So I believe in this notion of knowledge is free, work costs money. So if somebody wants to call me for half an hour and ask me a couple questions, please call me. My number is published on the website. So is my email. Reach out. I'm happy to answer questions. But if you actually want me to do work, that's when we have to sign a contract. I've been doing it for a few years where when somebody calls me with a new project opportunity, I tell them, look, I'll do cursor review for free. I'll look at your site. I'll look at, and by now we've developed AI tools where we could feed in all the information about the property, zoning, address, parcel number, things like that, and get a long report about that property and what's possible there, and if a rezone is necessary, or what the entitlement path would look like. And I'm happy to share that information. I've been
Mhm.
getting so many requests recently that we're thinking of charging for that too.
Yeah.
What we would do is we're working on it on the back end right now is we would just have an online tool. If you just want to go through it and do it on your own, feed in the address, the tool's available. There's going to be a small fee to run through it just so that we could compensate the developers for it.
Yeah. It's
But
almost
generally
like you
speaking,
almost need to sell them on the edit. They need to see what could be possible. It's like you got to get through that feasibility study so they see what's possible, and you can sell them that you can actually do it, and then show them like how much money they can make. It's like at that point, it's kind of might not be too difficult to sell after that.
well, yeah. So they have to know what the potential is, but then they start asking questions. Well, how much is construction going to cost? How much are all the engineers going to cost? How much am I going to sell it for? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm going to have to actually do some work to answer those questions. And and then my favorite one is, oh, I just talked to this architect or I just talked to the civil engineer. They said they do a feasibility study for me for free. I'm like, fine, take it. But keep in mind, your architect is not going to build a pro forma for you. Your civil engineer is not going to be able to tell you how much uh, the construction work is going to cost. They might tell you how much their other client paid for a similar project in the past. Fine, you could use that as a guide, but they wouldn't be able to put together the whole pro forma. They wouldn't be able to do the market research for you. They wouldn't be able to sell it for you. They are trying to sell their engineering services. They're trying to sell you their architectural services.
Yeah.
Feasibility to them is, can it be built physically? Feasibility
Right.
to me is, should it be built?
Mm.
And so that's the difference, and that's the type of an argument we frequently, not the argument, but a dialogue that we frequently have.
Well, where do you feel like you deliver the most value in these projects, or where do you feel like what happens if you don't get the approval on the land entitlement or something like that?
Well, so we start by educating owners that there's always risk.
Mhm.
Whenever you do something, whenever you invest in something, you always have to realize that there may be risk. Now, we always try to mitigate those risks. I've never had a case where we would propose something and it just straight gets rejected. In fact, somebody recently asked me, they're like, "Does can my proposal get rejected?" I'm like, I've actually never seen that happen before. What I have seen is the municipality would give you a laundry list of
Feedback, yeah.
of feedback, and then you look at it and you're like, "Oh, the hell with it," and then you drop it. But I've never actually seen the big, like they show in movies or like memes, like the big reject stamp on the plans.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, typically we start with pre-application meetings. We would come in and we have a conversation. We, I frequently try to talk my owners out of going and talking to the city on day one because they're like, "Well, I don't need to hire you. I can just go and talk to the city." And I'm like, "Look, yes, you can talk to them. I highly recommend that you talk to them, but I would really like to have the early conversation with at least something in hand." I hate, we call them academic exercises. When you come in and you ask a hypothetical question and you get a hypothetical answer. What I like doing is I like bringing at least a concept, at least a drawing, a site plan, something that's a little bit, that shows a little bit more thought into the city hall so that we could have a substantive conversation. And a lot of municipalities, especially in bigger cities, they would talk to a consumer with I don't know, more warmth than they would talk to me because I'm a professional. I'm supposed to know. Versus if an owner comes in, they could just ask a question as a layman, and they would typically get a little bit of education. But if you start abusing them, and if you start calling them every other day with new questions, eventually they're going to stop answering. And
Yeah.
so, you know, your application could not get permitted, but typically we would know about it early enough.
Mhm.
We had a case where we had massive neighbor opposition. The city was in favor. Our proposal had was fully code compliant, but
Yeah.
the process required public comments, and they were nasty because we were blocking views on. We had a neighboring building; it was a condo building, and we were blocking views on one of their sides because our building, we were building up to our property line, which was code compliant. The code allowed us to build up the property line. Their building was set back about, their windows were about 10, 15 feet away from the property line, but their stair tower was protruding out and it was about 2 feet from the property line. And so they used the fact that our building was up to the property line and their stair tower was 2 feet away. And they're like, how are we going to maintain our building? And so they got nasty, they got loud. It happens. And so I tell owners that these are the risks that are possible. It happens, and then we would have to negotiate. We would have to mitigate, and
Yeah.
it's just part of life.
Well, so what are some things that you wish landowners knew?
My biggest wish is for the owners to understand that it takes experience, that you have to know what questions to ask and what to expect, and that it's not simple, but at the same time, it's not impossible.
Because they don't know. They've never done it before, right? They have no idea what they're getting into, trying to figure it out themselves.
Well, a lot of people think that just because they remodeled the kitchen, they can now subdivide the land and build multiple homes on it.
Yeah.
And it's not the same. I always tell them never cut corners on your design and engineering. When you're remodeling the kitchen, you can hire guys and they'll tear everything out. And then you'd be like, all right, well, I don't know what cabinets I want. And then you go and shop for cabinets. And then the cabinets get installed and you're like, well, I don't know what countertop I want. Then you go and shop for countertops. And
You have to have it all figured out from the beginning. Yeah.
right, but if you're building a complex project with multiple buildings, multiple trades involved, you have to have it all figured out.
Yeah.
Because if
Yeah.
if you don't, it's going to burn time, it's going to burn money.
So you wish they knew just what was involved,
The
basically, the
whole
whole
yeah,
process.
the whole scope. Yeah, the way I describe my job, because a lot of time people ask, they're like, so you're not a builder, you're not an engineer. What do you do? And I'm like, all right, here's picture an orchestra where you have 100 people sitting in front of you, and they each one of them plays their instrument, and each one of them is a highly skilled musician, professional at their field. They know their part. You can wake them up in the middle of the night and they'll know their part. But if you put all of them together in the room, you have to have a conductor who keeps that time, who keeps that beat, who signals them when to start, when to stop. Without that, all of these professionals are, I mean, they might be okay. I mean, I've seen little. It's funny. I've seen little caricatures. When a professional orchestra gets conducted by some celebrity, and they sound okay, but it's not sustainable. My job is to be that conductor. My job is to make sure that everybody knows what time they need to step in, to make sure that they are coordinated, and to make sure that they stop pointing fingers. It's amazing how much educated grown adults behave like children when things go
Yeah.
wrong. I mean, you've seen it, I'm sure, where an engineer says, well, I didn't do it because he said that he would do that. And then the architect
Yeah.
says, no, I didn't. It's because something else happened. And they
Whose
start
whose
pointing,
fault is it? And yeah, yeah, yeah.
right? And so it has to, somebody has to take charge and put it all in order and make sure that it's all coordinated, that they all know what their role is and what their part is.
Yeah. No, yeah, I share that. So with all the success that you've had, Eugene, what's next for you?
What's next is to um, continue growing. I mean, we are expanding here locally in Western Washington, but since I started doing my social media and podcast, I started getting calls from all over the country. And I said, well, I don't have a construction company, so I'm not really tied to this area. I can work on projects anywhere. My goal is in the next few years to be thought of GIS companies to become almost like a household name. When somebody thinks about developing their properties, they could call us. Just like, when you need to buy, I don't know, some household products, you go to Home Depot. That's the first thing, or Lowe's, whatever is your local hardware store. That's what you think. I want people to think of GIS companies as their resource, because opportunities are truly endless. And especially in housing, we still have housing shortage across the country. So I don't think we can go wrong with that. And yeah, that's my plan.
I love it, man. And if people want to learn more about you and your services, where can they go?
Check out our website, giscompanies.co. Download that feasibility study checklist if it's going to help you out. We've got a ton of resources. We've got resources for investors who want to invest in development projects. And, check out our podcast, Real Estate Development Land to Legacy.
Yep, Land of Legacy podcast. I love it. Well, man, thanks for dropping all the gold bombs, guys. If y'all got some value from this, share it with somebody who needs to see it. If somebody owns some land, have them reach out to Eugene. Who knows what it could be worth? We will see you guys next time. Thanks for coming on, Eugene.
Thank you, Ren.